Hi everybody, it's Annette from the Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about divine timing. And what exactly does divine timing mean? It is a phrase that is thrown around in any kind of metaphysical documentation you'll ever read, any podcast you'll ever listen to. It's all over tarot cards, divine timing, divine timing. And what exactly does that mean? And what is the cadence to divine timing? Because there is sort of a song to it. It's the simple definition, would be, oh, it all comes when it's supposed to, right? Like there's a master plan for everything. But there gets to be a time when we kind of get sick of hearing that. You kind of get sick of someone saying that and or hearing the phrase. Especially in the, air quote spiritual community, you'll hear that phrase all the time. So we're going to kind of take it and we're going to twist it a little bit. Divine timing is sort of the layout of your human plan, and then the plans you had kind of on top of those. So think of your human plan as kind of your base plan of your life plan of what you were going to do. Like, I was going to get married, I was going to do all these things. And I say your human plan because when you did that roadmap, in a sense, you did it from a human consciousness. That's kind of how you see yourself navigating it, even though technically it was still created from higher consciousness, but you were going to be navigating that plan in your human consciousness, even though your soul wrote the map. You'd agreed to all this stuff before you got there. So a lot of people would say, well, we don't have a choice, right? There's no free will. And technically, if you're in human consciousness, there is no free will. So that is true. Because you don't understand the choices you're making. When we're in that conscious, we don't understand the choices we're making. So technically, it is unconscious still. Technically, it is not a conscious act because we're not conscious enough to know what we're doing. So if you think about your human plan as something you had signed up for on a soul level, but you're not kind of aware of that once you get into human consciousness. That's when your amnesia starts. You don't really realize what you signed up for. So you just kind of go through your life. And that's where you sometimes will hear that phrase, divine timing. It all happens when it's supposed to. And that's kind of a human way to kind of make yourself feel better when certain things aren't coming in the way you want them to. Now, think about when you put kind of a plan on top of that. And once you start going into your awakening process, your ascension process, which is just embodying in more of your soul, your human plan gets scrapped. And we talk a lot about taking our frequency up to different timelines, increasing our body frequency to bring in and anchoring in different timelines. And basically what you're doing then is you're getting kind of different maps. You're getting maps that you're able to navigate in a sense, and you're not doing it blindly because your consciousness is different. And a lot of times what you said you were going to do in a human consciousness, right now you might not do that anymore. You might not participate in certain things. You might participate in them in a shorter amount of time because you don't require to be in a relationship for 3 years. You might be able to wrap that sucker up in 3 months because you can see all the reasons why it might not be able to last for 3 years, why it doesn't have a purpose for 3 years. What you're going to find is when you're working in human consciousness, everything has to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, when you're in higher consciousness, we don't want to do it. And our human consciousness, we don't care if it has a purpose, we just want to do it. We have a reason that we want to do something. Higher consciousness, it has to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, you're not going to feel the urgency to do it, and you're going to feel like it's kind of a waste of time. You're not going to really want to do it. So you start to really pick and choose what you do, and you get different opportunities. We talked a little bit last time about, instead of having kind of a lasso effect on you picking certain things, which is what our human does. I want that person, I want that job. When you get your body frequency and you start tuning your energy field to a certain frequency, you're going to bring in a lot of stuff. It's like a tractor being pulling stuff toward you. That's why we never really go toward anything in a sense. We wait for kind of to come to us, but do the steps to make sure we're ready for the stuff when it gets here. So we're not kind of stuck with our energetic panties down, really surprised when something comes in. We've kind of been preparing for it to get here. And when it gets here, we're like, okay, great, now it's here. And I can now, participate in this reality. But what you're going to start to notice about divine timing is it doesn't really have the mystery about it anymore that it has in our human consciousness. In our human consciousness, we will look back. Even in our human consciousness, we'll look back and see, oh, I see how that had to work out that way. And that's because we're at a different frequency. Even if we're still in a human consciousness, our body's at a different frequency. We still have more knowledge, more connection than we did when we did that reality. So that's why when you look back, you understand. Oh, I see. 20 years ago, I understand why it had to lay out that way. And that's kind of divine timing in a sense. It had to lay out that way because that's how it had to go. The higher your frequency goes, when you start operating from your higher aspects in that consciousness, in a higher aspect consciousness, in all of your higher aspect consciousnesses combined together, and you're still bringing in new ones, galactic consciousness, you start to look at divine timing differently. And you start to see really what that means and why certain things have to come in at certain times. And if you get them earlier in a sense, it's not going to work out the way you wanted it to because the frequency you're attracting it in is off. So it's not going to really come in the way you want it to, in a sense, and still sort of a human consciousness until your frequency is correct. And in a sense, and I don't correct or not correct. That doesn't. It sounds more like a scolding thing. But when your frequency's at the right space to attract it exactly how you want it, right? And you don't have a want and need about it being here. It kind of goes back into the old phrase, "I'll let it go," and we always hate that phrase. It's just like divine timing. Anyone tells you to let it go or all in divine timing, you just want to throttle them when you're in these realities, kind of really, air quote, wanting that stuff. It's like, you don't want to hear it. Anyone who tells me to let it go, it's obvious you've never had to let anything go before. You wouldn't, or it's easy for someone to say that when they don't have anything attached to it. It's in higher consciousness, you kind of start to shift that. I just give it space. It needs space. It needs space to either recalibrate into a higher frequency relationship or higher frequency reality, or I'll give it so much space that by the time I have to let it go, I'm not going to give a shit anymore. Because I would have gotten rid of all the cords that had me intertwined in that reality. So you can kind of start to kind of change those words around a little bit, give it space, let it go. And it just has a freer feeling to it. It feels like more of a conscious choice instead of a forced choice. Let it go feels like a forced choice, and give it space feels like a conscious choice. I'm just going to give that space and see what happens. And by the time it comes around or goes away, I'll be in a different space to really evaluate it. You'll be at a different frequency to understand it. But when we start really delving into divine timing, you start to understand that there are always nudges for you to do certain things. Your universe is always going to try to point you in certain directions because this is the easiest way for you to do it, right? It might not look like the easiest way. Divine timing is kind of like, it's sort of in a way commands, but remember, you're the divine timing that's orchestrating it all. It's no one else. It's just different aspects of you, higher aspects of you that designed it this way. It was designed this way for a reason, because this is the easiest path, even though you don't feel like it is and you don't like it. And I say you, meaning the royal, all of us in our human consciousness, or when our human consciousness comes back in to fuss about something, we can kind of hear it. Because we don't like the cadence of it. We don't want it to be that way. I want it now. I don't want it 3 years from now, or I don't want to have to go do this reality first. But you're going to start to have more clarity on that. And you're going to start to have more clarity when you're in the reality to understand why I've got to go do that. I have to go do this now because if I don't go do this now, I won't have time to do this later. I have to get this stuff cleared out. This stuff is blocking me from, in a sense, in my way. I have to clear it from my body so my body vibration can raise so I can get to the next thing. That's more of how you want to look at divine timing. You're clearing stuff out. You have to go through certain realities to do that. It's not a easy, let me just go do that one. Quick intermission. I had to switch locations. What we do, the things we do to do videos. Okay. So when we go back through divine timing, we want to understand that basically what it's saying is you're not in the frequency of the thing you want yet. And there's other things that have to be cleared out before. It's kind of like you're doing your own roto-rooter of your insides in a sense. And you're kind of the more of your soul light you embody, your that light is kind of going to go through and go, okay, well that can't stay here. That's not in alignment with our new frequency. That's got to go. These things have to be resolved. A lot of times look at it as you have to resolve certain things. And if you have a program running and you still have, and when we talk about a program running, we talk about our patterns and our themes and how we deal with things, right? Like if we have a program of always giving our power away to someone, to a situation, to a friend group, to a certain person in relationships, then we're going to see that play out in different areas of our life. And we're going to have to eventually stand up and not do that anymore. Well, you're going to go through some parts of your ascension journey where you're doing that won't be aligned anymore. Like if you're going to embody in God consciousness, that is being soul creative your reality. So if you're not being the soul creative your reality, you can't fully embody that in. So anywhere you're not soul creative your reality, then you're going to have to look at that and you're going to have to align that. And that's really what ascension is. Ascension is now embodying it. And that means everything has to kind of match up to that now. There's no more, it's someone else's problem. It's our problem in a sense. It's ours to deal with. And until we deal with it, we can't go on to the next phase. Look at it like a big game board. And that's really all divine timing is. It's just, you have to go through it in a certain way. There's a certain pattern to it. But it might not feel like the linear way. You might want to, let's say you want to move to North Carolina or wherever you want to move to. But you're not ready to be there yet. Where you have to be, the spaces you have to be in there, your frequency's not high enough to bring that in. Your body's frequency can't attract those things into your life yet. You've got other things in the way. You've got perhaps relationships that you have not dealt with that you need to deal with, that you need to align. You have to get rid of all the baggage in a sense. And that's basically what it is. Our baggage kind of stops the clock in a sense, and we have so long to get to certain markers, and that's also what divine timing can be. It's kind of like our time frame. We have so long to get to certain places. We have so long to hit our mark. And after that, we kind of will get pushed there because now it's time for us to be there and we can't wait any longer. So you're going to find there are going to be certain things you're going to have to do that don't make a linear sense of why you have to do these things first. It's just like almost think of it as when you kind of try to explain something to a child on why you have to do certain things in a certain order. They don't want to hear that. They just want to get to where they want to get to. And the older we get, in a sense, we're the same way. We want to get to where we want to get to. We don't want to have to go through all this other stuff. But knowing that it's important and just really starting to appreciate what you're in the moment, because you'll never be in that exactly again in the exact same way. Because your frequency is never going to be exactly the same again. So you're never going to view that experience the exact way you're viewing it now. So just kind of enjoy the phase you're in, even if it might not be the phase your human wants to be in. I think I'll usually say it's not the sexy phase. It's not the phase where you look and go, oh, I really, really wish I was in that phase. I don't want to be in this other phase. I want to be in that phase. That's just kind of how it works sometimes. We have to, pretty much all the time, we have to kind of go through certain things. And normally it's stuff we don't want to face. As humans, we didn't want to have to face stuff. If it was difficult, we didn't want to have to do it. If it was something that was really emotional, something that we felt would cause a lot of pain, in a sense, air quote pain, human pain, we didn't want to have feel anything. And to us, when we're in our human consciousness, emotions mean feeling. And that can mean pain, and we don't want to do that. So we avoid stuff. We don't want to have to rectify relationships. We don't want to have to close things out. We don't want to do those things. So we kind of avoid them. And those are normally the things that we don't want to do. But in divine timing, those are the things that we're going to kind of be forced to do. And what's going to hold up what we really want at the end, whatever that is, what you're working toward on an energetic level, is if we just don't do those things. If we kind of keep putting it off, if we keep saying, oh, I'm not going to do that now. I don't want to do that now. I'll do that later. I know it was one thing I kept feeling I had to do, and I kept trying to put it off, saying, "Oh, I'll do that in a few years. I'll do that in 2025." I would do that, or I would try to super condense it and think I could do it in a weekend. Oh, I'll do it in a couple of days. It won't take that long to do it. And I'm like 7 weeks or 8 weeks into this adventure, and I'm like, it's no way I could have done this in 2 days. But it wasn't something I really wanted to do, but it was something that had to be done to close some things out to go on to the next phase. So just appreciate it for what it is and understand that you're there for a reason. And it's all kind of playing into what really is divine timing, which essentially it just means your frequency's not there yet. And we talk about that, and we say that in a lot of different ways. Until our body frequency is at a certain point and matches what we're trying to attract in, we're not going to land in that reality. And until you kind of land in that reality and plan in that reality, even once you're kind of there in that reality, it still takes a few days for that to solidify after that. The reality technically doesn't exist. So we're always trying to, so look at it, our humans always trying to get to something that doesn't exist yet. Not understanding that where we are, this is the solid thing we're in right now. So let's utilize this for what it's for. Are you supposed to assist other people? Are they supposed to assist you? Usually it's back and forth. Everyone's trying to assist everybody else in one way or the other. What can you bring to the table? Are you being, is it a reality where you're kind of being challenged? Can you hold your higher space? I had a video on that, I think, last week. And you can kind of see when you kind of dip out, when it's a little bit harder, when it's not as easy to relate to someone from your highest aspect. So anyway, I think that now I feel like it's more complete than it was before. So when you hear the word divine timing, understand that it's really just you're not ready yet. And even if you feel ready, there's stuff in the body that's not ready. So one other thing you can do is feel the body resistance when you say, oh, I want that, and feel your body. Does your body tighten up? Does your body not feel good? And that means you still got stuff in the way. It might not even be conscious stuff you know about. And there are some situations you might create to work through some of that stuff. And you didn't understand at the time that's what you were doing. But there's sometimes in all of our human realities, but even when we get into our higher consciousness realities where we still require a situation to work through something, we can't get it all energetically, because you'll start to shift. A lot of realities are kind of just energetic in a sense, and you don't have a lot of physical stuff happening for a long time. And that's also for you to kind of master the energetics of things and understand how things work. But sometimes we still need that, and you can maybe do 90% of it energetically, but then 10% you're going to have to go through some reality to get through the rest of it that you didn't realize was still there. And that's very common, but you might have shortened it. Instead of it being 2 or 3 years to work through everything, I can work through 90% of it energetically, because I know I have an issue with this. In a sense, I know I have a block here. I know I have a program running here. I'm telling myself a story that's not true. I don't need the 3 years to work through that in a situation, in a reality I'm going to create with other people. I can do that myself and maybe go through something for a month or 8 months or whatever instead of 5 years, because I'm going to work through it on my own. Maybe I can do it in 2 weeks. Maybe I can do it in 2 days. Eventually, maybe I can do it in 2 hours, because I can do so much work energetically that I don't require the length of time. And sometimes you don't need it at all. A lot of realities I thought I would have to deal with or go through, I just realized that after a while I didn't have to. I worked through it enough energetically. It had dissolved the whole thing, and there's no point of having the reality. You don't even call it in. It's what we said earlier. It's a waste of time. And in higher consciousness, we don't do anything that's a waste of time. Everything has a purpose. And if it doesn't have a purpose, then we don't do it. So, okay. Now I'm done. Keep practicing the art of intuition.